Hi, I'm so pleased to be able to support the Association of IFCAs today on World Oceans Day. And I'd like to speak a bit about the importance of the sea and the coastal regions around England, but most of all, I'd like to take you out on my boat and show you my bit of coastline. West Bay, West Dorset. It's just such a fabulous, fabulous place. And today, what I'm doing is I'm out checking my 2 lobster pots that I put out a couple of days ago. I don't have huge expectations because it's very early in the year. You know, I spent most of my life living in cities and I've got lobster pots. In fact, my first lobster pot that I ever owned was when I lived in East London, and I kept it in my cellar. And I actually bought it from Gundry's in West Bay, which I didn't even know existed. I didn't know West Bay existed then. I just wanted to have a lobster pot, which sounds insane, but it's something about connection. I just thought, what an exciting thing to have. I want to buy one, even though I was living in London, with a hope that one day I might get to put it in the sea. And here I am. I've lived down here now for 20 years, and I spend as much time on the sea as I can, and it's obvious why. Days like today, there is no better place to be. And we're so lucky here because even on a busy bank holiday, I'm looking at maybe 5 boats. 2 of them are rowing gigs, there's paddle boards, there's people fishing off the beach, there's people free diving off the breakwater, there's people walking along the pier, there's commercial boats going out to pull their cuttlefish traps, there's a trawler out working some of the muddy ground 5 to 6 miles out, there's peregrines hovering above the cliff tops, chasing seagulls and pigeons, putting the fear of death into them. And hopefully beneath us, not only is there a few mackerel coming in, there's also lobsters and crabs and cuttlefish and squid and all sorts of fantastic things to eat. And this place wouldn't be like this if it wasn't for the IFCAs, if it wasn't for people taking the care and consideration to look after it, to manage it, to monitor it, for all of us, from the dog walker to the seagull, to the gig rowers, to the free divers, to the man with his lobster pots, wishing against all hope that he's going to catch something. But who knows? I'm going to go and tug them and we'll see. So the moment of truth. Well, there's something going on. It's not something that I particularly need in my life. A lot of small spider crabs, but I might not be eating them, but at least I'll be saying hello. Look at that. Spidey McSpiders. Too small to eat, but happy to see them all the same. Lobsters! Lobster, lobster, lobster. Oh. That's a nice start. That is an epic start. Look at that. We could be in luck. There's just one thing we have to check. It's a male! If it was a female, we'd see old black eggs being held underneath there. That's what's called a buried female if it's got those eggs. But it hasn't. And I can tell you that that is of size. I will measure it just to prove it. But I can tell just by eye. So we look 90 millimeters behind the eye to the edge of the carapace. It's actually got to be 87, so we're good to go. First pot of the year, first lobster. So I actually come from a city. I was born in Glasgow, and we had no access to the sea, or very, very little. The only access that we ever had was the odd mackerel trip from Largs. But that was enough. Do you know, an ice cream on the front in Largs and a couple of mackerel to take home and maybe fish and chips on the way back. That, to me, that introduced me to the sea. And it's quite interesting, I think, with children. You know, we can talk about putting things on school curriculums and doing things in a very formal way. But if you're a little toddler and you're standing on West Bay Harbour and a seagull comes down and snatches a half a pasty from your greasy little toddler fingers, it's amazing how exciting that can be. You know, that could be the moment. It could be catching mackerel, it could be having a pasty nicked, it could be pulling up a crab line and seeing a little shore crab that you've caught with a piece of bacon. Those are the things, those are the moments that seal the deal with the sea and get people hooked. What's happened, obviously, because people are not going to Spain or Portugal to see the sea, to see the Mediterranean, the Atlantic out there. There is an urge to go and see the sea in the UK. And I know down in Dorset and in Devon and Cornwall, we had people flocking down. And it's interesting because not everybody wants to get in the sea. Not everybody wants to be on a paddleboard paddling across the sea. People are quite happy to sit on a bench, eat fish and chips and look at the sea. We have a rib ride down where I am in West Bay, where you can come and get on a rib and go blasting out to sea. And my daughter works there, and she had two girls, 14-year-old girls, turn up from Manchester the other day, but booked, and they were in their bikinis and their little string dresses over the top, and they'd never been on a boat before. In fact, most people that come to rib rides have never been on a boat before. And their biggest worry about going on that boat was whether blasting along through the sea across the waves was going to blow their false eyelashes off. That was the big problem, the big question. I think, in all fairness, we're never going to get everybody interested in protecting marine life or being coastally aware. All we can really hope to do is encourage the people that are connected with that sort of stuff to continue to do it and give them the power, the tools, the finances to do that. And at the same time, make the coast and the sea a friendly place, a positive place. So when people do come down to see it, they are able to get out on boats, or they're able just to stand on the pier and watch the other boats come in. I think that those who do, and those who are just happy to look should be allowed to look. And I don't think we need to drum it into too many people's heads. You know, all the schools around where I live, they do beach cleaning projects, and that's fascinatingly interesting. There's nothing better than picking up a bag of plastic on the beach, because you find all sorts of other exciting things too. Beach cleaning's great. A dead seal, a dead dolphin. My God, how exciting is that, to go and prod something dead on the beach? It's not all about making things very intellectual and academic. It's just a lot about letting people get down there and smell it. And sometimes it smells awful, but it's still exciting. I think that the protection of marine life and sustainability is very complicated. And we throw words like sustainability around an awful lot, and actually they become meaningless. and we see documentaries where things like sustainability are the number one issue, but actually we don't understand what sustainability is. And the IFCAs are fantastic because they are made up of a selection of bodies and agencies and individuals who know a lot about different areas, and they're coming together to try and control, protect, enhance the sea. And quite often when messages are sent out to the wider public, they're sent out in a very sensationalist way, as you see with certain documentaries. And that's not necessarily very effective because it often alienates certain bodies, commercial fishermen, netters, trawlers, whatever, because these words have been picked up from the documentary, and there isn't necessarily an understanding of the difference between trawlers, netters, commercial fishermen, aggregate dredgers, mussel dredgers. You know, it's a very complicated world out there, and I think the IFCAs do a very, very good job at it, but sometimes the problems get overblown and misunderstood. The IFCAs have to balance a lot of different desires and needs in their particular portion of the sea, and that can be very complex and very contradictory. One man's meat is another man's poison. You know, where you are allowed to set nets, where you're allowed to go out on your jet ski, where you're allowed to go diving, what you're allowed to touch when you're diving, all those sort of things, and what other boats are allowed in. Big ships, you know, where are they allowed to anchor? We've had lots and lots of, been on the news, lots of big cruise liners anchoring up around the coast. Well, a lot of them have been dropping their anchors on places that have got very, very delicate, fragile seabeds. So it's a very complicated job. And I think that it's kind of, you can't please all people all the time, and they do a good job. It's good that somebody's doing it. And they have their own, you know, their own inner contrasts and conflicts. Part of the job of the IFCAs is continually changing the balance. And if an IFCA is working properly, then that should be the case, because there will be different needs for an area at different times. We're seeing through climate change, through different methods of fishing, through different weather events, that different things need protecting, different things need to be researched and restored. And awareness grows as well. You know, suddenly you discover there's a nesting site for a certain species of fish in a certain area that nobody knew about before. So new things have to be brought in to take consideration of that. So it is a continually changing, shuffling pack of cards. What I'd like to see changed most of all is very simple. I would like to see a 12-mile limit. So this is something that we were promised and that we really felt was going to make such a big difference to our coastline, is that we would have governance over the 12 miles from our coastline. And in fact, that hasn't happened. But if that were the case, the inshore fishery could be protected so much better, and we would have a buffer to the outer fishery. At the moment, if big boats can come in and fish along the 6-mile line, they can stop a lot of the fish and other types of aquatic creatures from coming into the inshore fishery. So I think the 12-mile is what we need, and that is what we were promised, and really that would make all the difference. There's no question that we should be eating more fish, but it's not just more fish, it's the species of fish we eat, the type of fish we eat. We've become very spoiled in this country, and goes back historically to after the war, when the great cod fleets of the UK used to go to Iceland and up into the North Sea, and we had acres and acres of fabulous white fish to eat. Cod as long as your granddad, haddock as long as your leg, halibut that would take the size, halibut the size of a duvet, and that doesn't exist anymore. But we do have fantastic fish around our coast, so fantastic that the Spanish, the Portuguese, the Italians and the French have been importing it for decades. And now we're in a difficult position that they're not importing it, and it's still there, and it's fantastic. It's plaice, it's bream, it's bass, it's lobsters, crabs, spider crabs, velvet crabs, it's squid, it's octopus, it's cuttlefish. There's so many species out there that we just do not eat. And if ever there was anything that I would wish for World Oceans Day, my little heritage, was that people enjoy British fish more, that they appreciate what we've got and they want to eat it, and stop eating salmon and cod and prawns and tuna, because that's all we eat as a nation, and all of those we should stop. I would like my legacy to be dinner for my family tonight, caught from the sea, fresh mackerel, maybe a lobster, maybe a crab. That's my legacy. Thank you so much for coming with me on a little journey on my boat, and happy 10th birthday, IFCAs.